The conference room at Sterling Analytics had been transformed into something Ava barely recognized. String lights. Fake snow. A DJ who kept calling her ma'am even though she'd asked him 3 times to stop. The annual holiday party was in full swing, and she hated every second of it. She wasn't supposed to be here this late. The plan had been simple. Arrive at 7, make the rounds, congratulate the top performers, leave by 8:30. But then Gregory from legal had insisted on a toast. Then another. Then the board member from New York had cornered her about Q1 projections, bourbon in hand, and somehow her glass kept getting refilled. Ava Sterling didn't get drunk. She got things done. But tonight, the room had started tilting around 9:45. Miss Sterling. Ethan Parker appeared at her elbow, his presence as quiet as always. I'm heading out. Can I call you a car? She waved him off. I drove. I know. His voice stayed level. No judgment. Just fact. That's why I'm asking. Ava looked at him properly for the first time that evening. Ethan Parker, senior data analyst. 32 years old according to his file. Reliable. Kept his head down. Never asked for anything. She approved 3 weeks of his vacation requests last month without even reading them because he never caused problems. I'm fine, she said. The weather report says otherwise. Ethan pulled out his phone, showed her the screen. Winter storm warning. Roads already icing over. Let me call you a car, or I can drive you home myself. Something in Ava's chest tightened. She didn't need help. She'd built a $60 million company from nothing. She'd survived a divorce that had tried to take half of it. She'd sat through board meetings with men who spoke over her and came out on top every single time. She didn't need a data analyst to rescue her. No. The word came out sharper than she intended. I don't give out my address. Ethan's expression didn't change, but she saw something flicker in his eyes. Understanding, maybe. Or pity. She hated both equally. Then, let me call you a taxi. He tried again. I said no. She turned toward the exit, and the world swayed. Her hand caught the edge of a table. Ethan's hand caught her elbow. Miss Sterling, I'm leaving. She pulled free, dignity intact by sheer force of will. Alone, she made it to her car, got the key in the ignition, turned on the heat, and watched snow collect on the windshield while her vision blurred at the edges. The passenger door opened. Ethan slid in. Get out, Ava said. No. He pulled the keys from the ignition. I'm sorry, but no. Somewhere in the parking lot, Ava's phone buzzed. Then again. Then it started ringing. Ethan's phone went off at the same time. He answered, listened, his jaw tightened. Yeah, he said quietly. I understand. He ended the call and sat there, staring at the snow. Babysitter emergency? Ava heard herself ask. Sophie's got a fever. Rachel can't stay late. Ethan rubbed his face. My daughter, she's 7. Ava knew he had a daughter. It was in his file. Single father, custody arrangement, occasional schedule conflicts that he always resolved without making them her problem. Call another sitter, she said. It's 11 o'clock on a Friday night in December. Ethan's voice stayed steady, but she heard the edge underneath. They sat in silence. Snow piled higher on the windshield. I can't leave you here, Ethan said finally. And I can't leave my daughter alone. Ava understood the equation before he finished speaking. She didn't like it, but she understood it. Fine, she said. Take me home. Then go get your daughter. I can't take you home if you won't give me your address. Another silence. Take me to yours. Then, Ava said, I'll sleep on your couch. You deal with your daughter. In the morning, I'll get a car. Ethan looked at her. Really looked at her. Are you sure? No, she wasn't sure. This violated every protocol she'd built around her life. but the alternative was letting him leave her in a parking lot to potentially make a catastrophic decision, and she couldn't afford that kind of liability. "Drive," she said. The roads were worse than the weather report had promised. Ethan drove carefully, hands at 10 and 2, eyes on the road. Ava watched streetlights blur past the window and tried to remember the last time she'd been in a car she wasn't driving. "How far?" she asked. 20 minutes in this weather, normally 12. The neighborhood, when they reached it, wasn't what she expected. Not because it was run down, it wasn't. But it was the kind of place where people actually lived. Small houses with Christmas lights. Cars in driveways instead of parking garages. A corner store still open despite the snow. Ethan's house was dark. He pulled into the driveway, killed the engine. "Stay here," he said. "I need to get Sophie from Rachel's, 2 houses down. I'll be back in 5 minutes." Ava nodded. Watched him jog through the snow, collar up against the wind. Watched him disappear into a house with a wreath on the door. She closed her eyes. Just for a second. When she opened them again, Ethan was opening her door. "Miss Sterling?" She tried to stand. Her legs didn't cooperate. "Okay," Ethan said quietly. "Let me help." He got her arm around his shoulders, supported most of her weight across the driveway and up 3 porch steps. Inside, the house smelled like cinnamon and something else she couldn't name. Not unpleasant, just unfamiliar. "Sophie's already asleep," Ethan said. "Fever broke an hour ago," Rachel said. "I'm going to put you in the guest room. It's not much, but couch is fine," Ava managed. "Guest room has a door. And you'll want privacy when you wake up." He was right. She hated that he was right. The guest room was small. A double bed with a faded blue quilt. A nightstand with a lamp. A window that looked out onto the backyard. "I'll get you some water," Ethan said. "And something to sleep in. That dress isn't—" "I'm fine." "You're not." Still no judgment. Just fact. "Wait here." He came back with a large t-shirt and sweatpants. Set them on the bed, along with a glass of water and 2 aspirin. "Bathroom's across the hall," he said. "I'll be up if you need anything." Ava waited until he left. Changed into the t-shirt, the sweatpants were hopeless. Too big even to stay up. The shirt smelled like detergent and something else. Not cologne. Just clean. She lay down. The room spun for a while, then settled. Down the hall, she heard Ethan moving around, checking on his daughter, probably. Then silence. But at 3 in the morning, when Ava woke up, disoriented and stumbled to the bathroom, she saw light under what must have been the kitchen door. On her way back to the guest room, she caught a glimpse through the crack. Ethan, sitting at the kitchen table, laptop open, running his hands through his hair. He looked exhausted and terrified. Ava understood that, too. She'd built her career on understanding risk. Ethan had just taken a massive one, bringing his boss home. Even with the best intentions. Even with no other choice. If she reported this wrong, he'd lose everything. She went back to bed and didn't sleep. Ava woke up to coffee. Not the sound of a machine brewing, the actual smell, rich and dark, filtering under the door. For exactly 3 seconds, she didn't remember where she was. Then it came back in a rush that made her sit up too fast. Her head throbbed, her mouth tasted like regret, and she was wearing a man's t-shirt in a strange house, and she had no idea what time it was or who knew she was here, or she found her phone. 7:36. Saturday morning. 32 missed calls, 18 text messages, all from people who worked for her. Ava stood up. The hardwood floor was cold under her bare feet. She found her dress from last night folded over a chair when had that happened, and her shoes lined up neatly beside it. The bathroom across the hall had fresh towels and a packaged toothbrush still in its wrapper on the sink. Ethan had thought of everything. Ava brushed her teeth, washed her face, looked at herself in the mirror. The CEO of Sterling Analytics, wearing a subordinate's shirt, hair a mess, makeup from yesterday smudged under her eyes. She looked human. She hated it. Ava pulled the dress back on wrinkled, smelling like bourbon and poor decisions, and opened the bedroom door. The hallway was narrow. Family photos on the walls. A child's drawing taped crookedly to one frame. At the end of the hall, she heard voices, one deep and careful, one bright and curious. "Can I wake her up?" "No, sweetheart. Let her sleep. But you made pancakes." "I made pancakes for you. You made extra." Silence. Then, "Yeah, I did." Ava stepped into the kitchen doorway. The room was small, yellow walls, a round table with 4 chairs. Ethan stood at the stove, spatula in hand, wearing jeans and a sweater that had seen better days. And at the table, a little girl with dark hair and 2 braids looked up at Ava with eyes that were far too observant for 7 years old. "You're awake," Sophie said. Ethan turned. Something crossed his face, relief, maybe, or just exhaustion finally catching up. "Miss Sterling," he said. "Coffee? Please." He poured a cup, handed it to her. Their fingers didn't touch. "Are you sick?" Sophie asked. "Sophie," Ethan said quietly. "Rachel said people who drink too much get sick. You smell like the stuff Daddy spilled last New Year's." Ava looked at the little girl. Most children made her uncomfortable. They were unpredictable, emotional, inefficient. But Sophie wasn't looking at her with judgment. Just curiosity. "I made a mistake," Ava said. "Your dad helped me fix it." "That's what dads do," Sophie said. "Fix things." Ethan's hand tightened on the spatula. "Pancakes," he said. "Sophie, said another place." "I should go," Ava started. "You should eat," Ethan said. "Then I'll drive you wherever you need to go." It wasn't a request. It wasn't an order either. Just a statement of what was going to happen. Ava sat down at the table. The pancakes were better than they had any right to be. Fluffy, slightly crispy at the edges. Ethan served them with real maple syrup, not the corn syrup garbage most people used. Ava ate mechanically at first. Food was fuel. She'd forgotten to eat yesterday, probably. That's why the alcohol had hit so hard. But then Sophie started talking, and Ava found herself actually listening. "Mrs. Henderson says I need to focus more in class," Sophie said, drowning her pancakes in syrup. "But the math is boring. We're still doing addition." "I finished the whole workbook in September. Did you tell Mrs. Henderson that?" Ava asked. "She said I need to be patient with the other kids." Ethan cut his pancakes into precise squares. "Mrs. Henderson is doing her best with 30 students." "I know," Sophie sighed. "But it's still boring." Ava recognized that sigh. She'd been that kid. Too fast for the curriculum. Too impatient for group work. "What would you rather be learning?" she asked. Sophie's face lit up. "Fractions. Or decimals. Or, oh, Daddy showed me percentages last week. We calculated how much of my Halloween candy was chocolate versus other stuff." 63% chocolate, Ethan said. She charted it. "I like charts," Sophie said. Ava felt something strange in her chest. Not quite a smile, but close. "Charts are useful," she said. For the next 20 minutes, Ava listened to a 7-year-old explain her system for organizing her book collection by genre. Then by how much she liked them, then by color within each category. Listened to her describe the science experiment she wanted to try with growing plants in different types of light. Listened to her talk about patterns and systems, and why rules should make sense. And the whole time, Ethan watched his daughter with an expression Ava couldn't quite name. Pride, definitely. But also something else. Something that looked like fear. "Can I show her my drawings?" Sophie asked suddenly. "She needs to go home soon," Ethan said. "Just one?" Ethan looked at Ava. "You don't have to." "One drawing," Ava said. Sophie disappeared in a flash of braids and pajamas. Alone in the kitchen, Ava and Ethan sat in silence. The coffee maker gurgled. Snow fell outside the window. "Thank you," Ethan said quietly, "for talking to her like she's smart?" Ava finished. "She is. I know. But most people—" He stopped, started again. "Most people don't see it. They see a kid. They see someone to pat on the head and tell to be patient." Ava understood. She'd spent her whole career being told to be patient, to wait her turn, to not be so intense. "She'll stop being patient eventually," Ava said, "and she'll stop caring what people like Mrs. Henderson think. That's what I'm afraid of." Sophie came back with a spiral notebook, placed it in front of Ava, and flipped it open. The drawings were good. Not child good. Actually good. Architectural sketches. Buildings with precise lines and careful shading. A treehouse with a pulley system. A bridge with cables and support beams labeled in careful handwriting. "I want to build things," Sophie said. "Real things, not just in drawings." Ava looked at the sketches. Looked at the little girl, watching her with hopeful eyes. "These are excellent," she said. "Have you shown them to anyone?" "Just Daddy. You should show them to more people. Your teacher. Maybe enter a school competition." "There's no competition for this stuff," Sophie said. "Then create one," Ava said. "That's what you do when systems don't work for you. You build new ones." Ethan was staring at her. Ava cleared her throat. "I should make some calls. Is there somewhere I can—" "My room," Ethan said. "Down the hall, last door. Take your time." Ethan's room was as spare as the rest of the house. A bed, neatly made. A dresser. A bookshelf with an odd mix of technical manuals and children's books. A framed photo on the nightstand. Ethan, younger, holding a baby. A woman beside him, laughing. Ava looked away. She made her calls. Apologized to her assistant for missing the morning briefing. Rescheduled 2 meetings. Assured her board member that yes, she was fine. Just a minor situation. Everything was under control. Everything was not under control. But Ava had built her career on making people believe things that weren't quite true yet. When she came back to the kitchen, Sophie was at the table with a pile of art supplies. Ethan was washing dishes. "Can you draw?" Sophie asked without looking up. "Not well," Ava admitted. "That's okay. Most people can't." Sophie was working on something with intense concentration. "Daddy says the important thing is trying." "Does he?" "Yeah. He says people who don't try don't get to complain when things don't work out." Ava glanced at Ethan's back. He'd gone very still at the sink. "Smart dad," Ava said. "He's the best." Sophie finished whatever she was working on and held it up. "This is for you." It was a drawing of the house. Simple but careful. A stick figure in the window, Sophie, presumably. Another stick figure on the porch. And a third stick figure, taller, wearing what might have been a dress. "That's you leaving," Sophie explained. "But I drew you on the porch, not in a car, because Daddy said you don't have a car here, so you have to wait for him to drive you." "That's very observant," Ava said carefully. "I observe things." Sophie tilted her head. "You're sad." "I'm not. You have the same face Daddy has sometimes." "When he thinks I'm not looking," Ethan turned around. "Sophie, that's enough. It's true, though." Sophie looked between them. "You both have sad faces, but you stopped having it when you were eating pancakes, out of the mouths of children." Ava took the drawing. "Thank you. This is very kind. You can keep it," Sophie said. "If you want." Something in Ava's chest cracked. Not broke, just cracked. Enough to let something in. "I'd like that," she said. By 10 o'clock, Ava's car service had arrived. The roads were clear. The sun was out. The world had returned to normal. Ava stood in the hallway, wearing her wrinkled dress and last night's shoes, holding a child's drawing and a sense of displacement she couldn't quite name. "Thank you," she said to Ethan, "for everything." "This was necessary," Ethan finished. "And I hope we can both forget it happened. That should have been the right thing to say. the professional thing, but it felt wrong. Sophie, Ava called toward the living room. I'm leaving now. Sophie appeared in the doorway, still in her pajamas despite the late hour. Are you coming back? Ava stopped. Why not? Because your dad works for me, and I'm his boss. And this, she gestured vaguely. This shouldn't have happened. But you said Daddy helped you fix a mistake. He did. Then why can't you come back to say thank you better? Ava looked at Ethan. He was studying the floor like it held answers. It's complicated, Ava said finally. That's what adults say when they don't want to explain things, Sophie said. Mrs. Henderson says that all the time. Ethan rubbed his face. Sophie, let Miss Sterling leave, please. Can she stay for lunch? Why not? Because she has a life. And we have our own things to do. Sophie crossed her arms. You made her pancakes. You never make pancakes for other people. Just me. Sophie. And you smiled when she talked about my drawings. You never smile at work. Ava watched Ethan's expression close. Watched him rebuild the walls he'd let down for approximately 12 hours. That's enough, he said quietly. Say goodbye to Miss Sterling. Sophie looked mutinous, but she walked over and stuck out her hand for a handshake. Ava shook it. The little hand was warm and sticky from syrup. Thank you for the drawing, Ava said. You're welcome. Sophie leaned in like she was sharing a secret. Daddy needs more friends. He only has me and Rachel and the people at work, and the people at work don't count because he says they're not really friends. Sophie, Ethan said. Warning now. Goodbye, Sophie, Ava said. She walked out the door. Down the porch steps. Into the waiting car. She didn't look back. But as the car pulled away, she saw Sophie in the window, waving, and Ethan on the porch, hands in his pockets, watching her leave with an expression she couldn't read. Ethan stood on the porch until the car disappeared around the corner. Then he stood there a little longer, watching snow melt off the roof in the morning sun. She's gone, Sophie said from behind him. Yeah. Are you sad? Ethan turned around. His daughter stood in the doorway, bare feet on cold tile, looking at him with those eyes that saw too much. No, he said. You have your sad face again. I'm tired. That's different. Sophie considered this. When Mom left, you had that face for a long time. Ethan's chest tightened. They didn't talk about Claire often. It had been 3 years since the divorce. Sophie barely remembered the before times. This isn't like that, Ethan said. I know. Mom wanted to leave. Miss Sterling didn't want to. How do you? He stopped. Sophie, you can't read people's minds. I don't read minds, I observe. Sophie sat down on the porch step despite the cold. She looked at our house like she'd never seen a house before. She was probably judging the mess. No. She looked at it like Sophie struggled for words. Like when I see other kids playing at recess and I want to play too, but I don't know how to ask. Ethan sat down beside his daughter. Miss Sterling is my boss. She's very successful. Very important. She doesn't need, he gestured at the house. This, maybe she doesn't need it, Sophie said. But maybe she wants it. That's not how the world works. Why not? Because Ava Sterling lived in a different universe. Because she ran a company worth tens of millions. Because she probably had a penthouse somewhere with a view that cost more than his entire house. Because people like her didn't want people like him. She talked to me like I was smart, Sophie said quietly. Not like a kid. You are a real person, but most people don't see that. They see braids and missing teeth and they talk slow and use small words. Sophie picked at a splinter on the porch step. She didn't do that. Ethan pulled his daughter close. She smelled like syrup and strawberry shampoo. You know what I think? Sophie said. What? I think she's lonely. Like you. I'm not lonely. I have you. That's different. You can have me and still be lonely. Sophie looked up at him. Don't you want friends? I have friends. Rachel doesn't count. She's a babysitter. She's a very nice babysitter. Still doesn't count. Sophie stood up. I'm cold, and I want hot chocolate. She went inside. Ethan stayed on the porch. His phone buzzed. A text from Marcus, the only person from work he'd call a friend. Dude. Is it true you drove the Ice Queen home last night? Word traveled fast. Ethan didn't reply. He went inside, made hot chocolate for Sophie, and tried not to think about the way Ava Sterling had looked sitting at his kitchen table, like she belonged there, like she wanted to stay. Monday morning hit Ethan like a truck. He walked into Sterling Analytics at 8:45, coffee in hand, and immediately felt the weight of every eye in the building. Sarah from HR gave him a tight smile. Jeremy from marketing actually stopped mid-conversation to watch him walk past. By the time Ethan reached his desk, he'd counted at least 15 people staring. His desk phone was ringing. Parker, he answered. Conference room 3. Now. It was Margaret, Ava's assistant. Her voice gave away nothing. Ethan hung up, looked at his computer screen. He had 17 unopened emails. 3 were flagged urgent, all from HR. He was going to be fired. The realization settled over him with strange calm. He'd known the risk, had taken it anyway. Now he'd pay the price. Conference room 3 was on the executive floor. Ethan had only been up there twice in 4 years. Once for his initial interview, once for a company-wide presentation. The elevator ride felt longer than usual. Margaret was waiting outside the conference room. She'll be with you in a moment. Am I? Just wait here, please. The door opened. Ava Sterling stepped out, phone to her ear, dressed in a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Ethan's monthly salary. She looked every inch, the CEO. Hair perfect, makeup flawless, not a trace of the woman who'd sat at his kitchen table eating pancakes. She saw him. Something flickered in her expression. Then it was gone. I'll call you back, she said into the phone. Ended the call. Mr. Parker, come in. The conference room was all glass and steel. A long table, 12 chairs, a view of the city that probably looked impressive if you cared about that kind of thing. Ava sat at the head of the table, gestured to the chair beside her. Ethan sat. Close the door, she said. He did. They sat in silence. Outside, the office buzzed with Monday morning energy. Inside, Ethan could hear his own heartbeat. I'm going to say this once, Ava said, and then we're never going to discuss it again. Here it comes. Friday night was my fault, my responsibility, my mistake. Her voice was level, professional. You acted appropriately in a difficult situation. You ensured my safety without compromising my dignity. You provided assistance when I was unable to make sound decisions. Ethan blinked. I'm not finished. Ava pulled out a folder. Set it on the table between them. This is a formal commendation for your personnel file. It notes your quick thinking and professional conduct during a crisis situation. Ms. Sterling, this conversation is being documented. There will be no disciplinary action, no investigation, no consequences for either of us. She met his eyes. Do you understand? Good. She stood up. You can return to your desk. Ethan stood too. Started toward the door. Stopped. Can I ask you something? He said. Why are you protecting me? Ava's jaw tightened. I'm not protecting you. I'm correcting a situation that should never have occurred. You performed your job duties with integrity. I'm documenting that fact. That's not what I meant. I know what you meant. And the answer is no. We cannot discuss it. They stood there, 5 feet apart, with an entire power structure between them. She asked about you, Ethan said. Sophie. Mr. Parker, I told her you weren't, that it was a one-time thing, that you had your own life. He paused. She said you looked lonely. Ava's expression froze. Your daughter is 7 years old. She doesn't understand. She understands more than most adults. Silence. Is there anything else? Ava asked quietly. No, ma'am. Then we're done here. Ethan left. Walked back to his desk through a gauntlet of stares and whispers. Sat down. Opened his email. His hands were shaking. At 4:30, Ethan's desk phone rang again. Parker. Executive conference room. 5 o'clock. Margaret again. And Mr. Parker, come alone. The afternoon crawled. Ethan tried to focus on the quarterly analysis he was supposed to be finishing. The numbers swam on his screen. At 4:58, he took the elevator back upstairs. The executive floor was quiet. Most people had already left for the day. Margaret's desk was empty. Ethan knocked on the conference room door. Come in. Ava stood by the window, looking out at the city. She'd taken off her suit jacket, loosened the collar of her white shirt. Close the door, she said without turning around. Ethan closed it. Lock it. He locked it. Ava turned around. She looked exhausted. I owe you an apology, she said. You already. Not the official one, a real one. She walked to the table, sat down. I put you in an impossible situation. I refused to listen to reasonable advice. I made my problem your problem, and then I let a 7-year-old make me feel guilty about it. Ethan sat down across from her. Sophie has that effect on people. She's remarkable. You're raising her well. I'm doing my best. It shows. Ava folded her hands on the table. The truth is, I haven't sat in a kitchen like that and she stopped. I can't remember the last time I had breakfast with people who weren't trying to sell me something or take something from me. We weren't trying to. I know. That's the point. She looked at him directly. You fed me. Your daughter gave me a drawing. You treated me like a person who needed help, not a liability to be managed. You were a person who needed help. Yes. And I hated it. And I'm grateful for it. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Complicated. Ethan understood complicated. His whole life was complicated. What happens now? He asked. Now, we go back to normal. You do your job, I do mine. We maintain appropriate professional boundaries. And Friday night? Never happened. Sophie has your drawing on her wall. Ava's expression softened. Just for a second. Then, I guess it happened. But it doesn't happen again. Why not? The question hung between them. Because I'm your boss, Ava said. Because there are rules. Because, she stopped, started again. Because I built this company by never letting anyone see weakness. And you saw me weak. I saw you human. Same thing. Not to me. They sat there in the fading afternoon light. Outside, the city sparkled. I should go, Ethan said. Pick up Sophie from after school. Of course. He stood up, walked to the door, unlocked it. Mr. Parker. He turned. Thank you, Ava said quietly, for Friday and for not making this harder than it has to be. You're welcome, Miss Sterling. He left. Behind him, Ava Sterling sat alone in the conference room and looked at the city she'd conquered, and wondered why it suddenly felt so empty. Ethan drove home through rush-hour traffic, mind spinning. Sophie met him at the door, backpack still on. Daddy! Guess what? What? Mrs. Henderson said I can be in the math competition. The real one, for 5th graders. But she's letting me try because I finished all the practice problems in one day. Ethan swept her up. That's amazing. When is it? 3 weeks. Can you help me practice? Every single night. They made dinner together. Sophie talked non-stop about percentages and probability. Ethan listened and chopped vegetables and tried not to think about glass conference rooms and locked doors. At bedtime, Sophie brushed her teeth and climbed into bed with her current favorite book about building bridges. Daddy? Yeah? Is Miss Sterling nice? Ethan sat on the edge of the bed. Why do you ask? Because you like her. I can tell. Sophie, it's okay if you like her. I like her too. Sophie hugged her book. She talked to me like I was smart. And she looked at my drawings like they mattered. They do matter. I know. but most people don't see that. Sophie yawned. Maybe she'll come to my math competition. She's very busy. You could ask her. I don't think, Daddy. Sophie gave him the look. The one that said she knew exactly what he was avoiding. You're allowed to have friends. She's my boss. So? That doesn't mean she can't be your friend too. If only it were that simple. Ethan kissed Sophie's forehead. Get some sleep. Big day tomorrow. Every day is a big day, Sophie said. That's what makes life interesting. Ethan turned off the light, went to his own room, sat on the bed, and looked at his phone. He had one new email. Sent at 6:47 p.m. From a.sterling@sterlinganalytics.com. Subject: Thank you. Mr. Parker, I wanted to send this outside of official channels. The commendation I filed today was necessary for compliance purposes. This email is personal. Thank you for your kindness on Friday evening. Thank you for treating me with dignity when I didn't deserve it. Thank you for raising a daughter who sees the world clearly. Your work here has always been exemplary. I wanted you to know that I see it, and I appreciate it. If you ever need anything professional development, schedule flexibility, resources for Sophie's education, please don't hesitate to ask. Regards, Ava Sterling. Ethan read it twice. Then, a third time. He should delete it. Pretend he never saw it. Maintain the boundary she'd drawn so carefully in the conference room. Instead, he hit reply. Miss Sterling, Sophie has a math competition in 3 weeks. It's for 5th graders, but her teacher is letting her compete anyway. It's at the middle school. Saturday morning, 10 a.m. I know you're busy, but if you happen to have time that morning, she'd love to show you what she's learned. No pressure, just an invitation. Ethan. He hit send before he could second-guess it, lay down on his bed, stared at the ceiling. His phone buzzed. I'll be there. 3 words. No elaboration. No qualifiers. Just a promise. Ethan smiled in the dark. Maybe Sophie was right. Maybe people were allowed to have friends, even when the rules said they shouldn't. Maybe broken protocols could build something new. Maybe a CEO and a single dad and a 7-year-old girl could find common ground in a world that said they couldn't. Or maybe Ethan was being naive. Maybe this would end badly. Maybe he was setting himself up for disappointment. But down the hall, his daughter slept peacefully, dreaming of bridges and buildings and systems that made sense. And somewhere across the city, a woman who ran an empire sat alone in a penthouse, holding a child's drawing, remembering what it felt like to belong somewhere. The seed had been planted. What grew from it remained to be seen.